There's a whole lot of moralism and sexual moralism
that's
about
totally
rape.
different. That's totally... Someone who gets murdered in the street is going about their business. Then they're not doing anything.
Maybe they're completely drunk.
They're in control, but someone takes over them. When you are completely drunk and you're a woman and you're walking around and you're lying in a gut and some guy takes you on, why should the man who's equally as drunk be expected to act responsibly when the woman isn't?
You know, there's so much moralism about it, and you can talk about other situations. For instance, I don't like to get drunk, right? That's not my scene. But I like to walk in the woods alone, and I like to do it in the evening.
That's totally different.
It's not. It's different on a moral level, but in terms of taking risk, you could say it's exactly the same. It's my own fault.
But that is risk-taking. That is risk-taking.
That's right. Then people would condemn me for it. They would say, oh, it's my responsibility.
No,
but there is no distortion in your understanding, in your perception. Your life is in perfect clarity when you walk through the woods. The man that we're talking about, this assailant, would probably be, his life would have a clarity as well, a purpose as to what he was going to do.
Yes, I'm not
on
saying...
a Friday night in a town centre where there is no clarity because you're absolutely drunk out your brains, and maybe the guy that you end up with is also. Unfortunately, alcohol does that. It blurs the boundaries, and then how do you legislate?
It's exactly the same. What I'm saying is that it's another situation. If you take away all the moralism about drink, about women and drink, about sex, about clothing, you know, take away all that moralism, which is not the issue. The issue is, are you responsible? Have you taken a decision which puts yourself at risk? Fundamentally, it's exactly the same.
It's not.
And we're saying that a lot of...
Phil is saying this blurs the boundaries. This is exactly what we're saying. Because you cannot make rational decisions when you're really drunk.
And you can't remember what you've done.
And how can a girl who has been drunk go to court? And how can her evidence be relied upon? There was a High Court judge a few months ago has said that there's a growing trend in women who are faking rape to get compensation or whatever. And he said this is actually very dangerous to real victims of rape.
I know. They're always saying that women are to blame for what happens to real victims in court, and that's not the case. There are women now...
Excuse me. You are generalising with what
I'm not generalising.
I
have many... We have a lot of experience of women who've been accused of making false allegations, who actually have been raped, and who've ended up not only being taken to the police and questioned, but even taken to court and in some cases jailed. Can you imagine, as a rape survivor,
women have been jailed in the past 12 months because they were proved to have falsely made allegations.
I've got a case here. Sarah Jane Hilliard, who's 20, was accused of a student of rape after dragging him into a public toilet for sex, was spared jail. After being accused, her alleged attacker, although now cleared, has been the victim of violence and abuse and has had to sneak around because people still think that he's guilty of something he didn't do. Hilliard also applied for £7,500 compensation for the alleged rape. The lie began to unravel when police were unable to find CCTV footage of the pair leaving the club kissing and holding hands. And so it does, you know, we know
it's not that it never happens. I don't know this case, and I wouldn't presume to judge it on the basis of what I read in the media, because...
Oh, please, this is a court. This is a court case. It's not about what's in the media.
We've seen court cases where very selective reporting happens in the media.
The girl has got a suspended sentence.
I know.
The evidence is clear.
We've also seen court cases. If you have a 6.5% conviction rate, you know, you don't think 6.5% you know, the other 95% are lying. You know that the court cases do not necessarily come up with a correct verdict, and we know that a lot of what happens in rape cases is that the evidence is not gathered properly and the jury don't get a chance to see the evidence. The Warboys case shows that. You know, it's been proved this year.
Ruth, we're slightly off track here because, I mean, I think that certainly, as you're saying, that cases like this, once again, make convictions difficult. A woman reporting a rape is less likely if she thinks that she may not be treated sensitively. Thankfully, I think nowadays women are treated, and certainly from the interviews we've done here, that there is certainly a change in attitude.
There's some change, but unfortunately you can't count on it.
But what I do want to go back to is a point that Holly made, and that was the fact that I, as a father of two daughters, worked very hard to try and gently coerce my daughters into going out in the right sort of attire and to drink sensibly. But what you said is that do we put enough onus on our sons to say when you are under the influence, you have to respect the woman in the street.
But if you are under the influence, how can you respect? That's the point. You can't, because as you've said, the lines are blurred. So you can tell your son, and you know, your son would be absolutely moral. If he was sober, he wouldn't think about it. But if he's drunk and he believes in his confused state of mind that the girl is acquiescing, and she, you know, it could be you get to a situation where the girl is acquiescing, suddenly she gets this moment of clarity where she thinks, God, I don't want to do this. She has that moment of clarity and says no. He doesn't, because he's still as drunk.
So we've burned this down to one particular point here. Let me give you some more figures here. More women than men think that dressing provocatively puts the victim at fault. That's 17% compared to 14%. 1 in 10 women think that rape victims are to blame if they're acting flirtatiously. Nearly a fifth of women, 19%, believe the victim is partly responsible if they go back to their assailant's house. 1 in 10 people were unsure whether they would report the rape. 2% said they wouldn't report it. Those are the figures. What we've boiled this down to here is alcohol.
Yeah. And I do think that's been the seismic shift in the past few years in terms of what's happening with rape.
Relaxed licensing laws,
yes,
getting drunk
completely.
on a Friday and Saturday night.
Completely.
I think it's really a problem that that's what we've boiled it down to here, because it is an issue, obviously, but there are rapes in all sorts of circumstances, you know, and women who are raped when they're stone cold sober,
yes,
perhaps by their husbands,
yep,
you know, are having the same kind of problem in court, are also being accused of making false allegations, are finding that the evidence is not gathered, are finding that there's all sorts of prejudice according to whether they reported late, reported early,
but
things
Ruth,
which are actually irrelevant.
And yet
When the media gets onto it, what do you get?
When
you get
case
alcohol.
goes to court, there's a prosecution and a defence. It is the defence's job to make the other person out to be a liar. It doesn't mean it's true, but that is their job.
Yes, but
That's
if you have the courts putting women on trial, if women are feeling that they're judged by the police, judged by the prosecutors, how do you expect the public not to judge women?
We've had an email come in anonymously, and it says, when I heard the rape result, I think that those of us who have been raped will be saddened to hear this. It is hard enough to report it in the first place without the media reporting that a percentage of women are making it up. For most, it is a harrowing experience, and we need to make women, men comfortable, safe and believed.
I think we also need to get this survey into perspective. This is a small survey. I don't think this indicates that women are now unsympathetic about other women. This was 700 women, only half of whom, just over half, said women were partly to blame. No one ever said, no woman would ever say another woman deserved it or, you know, asked for it.
I think alcohol's too easily to blame. I think that takes the responsibility off of the individual.
That's what I would be talking about. You know, what Ruth's talking about when a lone woman is walking and some guy pounces on her. Yes, the law should be thrown at her, no question.
We have to leave it there, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. And we've had a massive response on Twitter and on Facebook. It's been absolutely huge, and it is quite obviously something that we're going to need to come back to. And thank you both.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, for any additional help or advice on anything we've discussed, please see our website, itv.com/thismorning, and we'll be back after the break.